In this video, I answer one of the most burning questions a lot of viewers and clients have. Does staying closer to an MRT really give you more profits? Hi everyone, my name is William from Own This Property and welcome back to the channel. As a former CFA charter holder, what I've done is analyze thousands of transactions of all the condos in Singapore so you don't have to. I'll be breaking down exactly how a condo's proximity to the MRT affects its profitability, broken down into the three key regions, your OCR, RCR, and CCR, and the answer might actually surprise you. And as a bonus, if you stay to the end of the video, I'll be sharing two condos that I've identified, one resale and one new launch that presents a good value opportunity today. So without further ado, let's dive into the numbers. As always, here at Own This Property, I pride myself on giving you original data and analysis that you won't see elsewhere. This is not a simple cut and paste job, and this is definitely not a summary done by AI. So if you want to support me, every single like and share will go a long way to keep me motivated and create more videos like this for you. So I saw this article a while back where they did a study of the distance of MRT impact on HDB prices. And in this HDB study, you see that about 15 out of 26 HDB towns that living nearer to the MRT actually has a premium of about $35 per square feet. But of the other 11 towns, there's no such pattern observed. In fact, other factors such as maybe their age, amenity size, attributes, they all outweigh this MRT proximity. And this gave me a light bulb moment and inspired me to do this analysis and apply it on a deeper level to private properties in Singapore. I've meticulously compiled all the condos, their TOP, their unit sizes, their unit mix, the distance to MRT, 1km primary schools, their profitability based on the unit types and rental yield. And this is what I call my OTP Ultimate Guide to MRT. This is the Oling Misi that I'll be using to share with you today. But all this data means nothing if you can't apply it to your specific use case. So if you wish to understand how I use this data to help my clients make a more informed decision, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp and I'll be happy to share more with you on a one-on-one consultation. And here's the result split into the three key regions, and wow, did the data really surprise me, because what I found completely shattered the traditional real estate rule book. The data proves that buying right next to the MRT can actually be the worst investment decision you can make, depending on the region. First up, the OCR, and purely based on the data, the sweet spot with the highest annualized returns of 5.04% are actually condos between 501 to 1000 meters, which is not exactly near the MRT. In fact, the average annualized returns of condos nearer to the MRT is the worst performer. So let's deep dive into the data to see what is actually going on over here. If you look closely at the poorest performing OCR condos within 200 meters of an MRT, we start to get a sense of why the numbers are bad. Now, intuitively, it might seem like it's going to be a good thing, but in reality, the top 5 worst performing OCR condos, they all have one thing in common, and this is developers in the era whereby they cram a lot of 1 and 2 bedroom units into a small condo next to an MRT. So take a look at Urban Vista. A lot of 441 square feet, 1 bedroom loft style units, meaning that there's a loft, it's kind of like a higher ceiling. Your study is below your bed and you can't really sit up straight in your bed as well. Or you look at Tannery, 614 square feet, is only 1 bedroom, there's a huge balcony, and there's actually a platform loft above the kitchen of all places. I said this many a times that these are the condos as an investor that you should absolutely avoid. In fact, as an investor, we should actually target condos that are more own stay centric. On the other spectrum, if you take a look at the best performing condos in the OCR within 0 to 200 meters, now despite Springbloom and Chiltern Park being super old, they still remain highly profitable, which also makes me super excited for the upcoming new launch at Chuan Grove this year. In the top performing OCR condos near MRT, we also start to see that the unit mix is much better. And contrary to popular belief that buying a 2-bedroom in the OCR is actually a bad decision, no, 2 bedrooms can actually make money. And if you take a look at the example over here, look at Coven Melody, right? So long as the condo is made for own stay, it is livable, the 2-bedroom units in that condo still perform very well, 5.62% annualized returns. In summary, here's what the data tells us about the relationship between MRT and OCR properties. Now, on the right side, I've done a correlation analysis also between the different factors that actually affect profitability, right? If you take a look over here, we have proximity to MRT, of course, but there's also own state unit mix, the school proximity to profits, and also the rental use. And the data actually shows that there is an inverse relationship between being close to an MRT and annualized profits in the OCR. So here are 5 lessons that I think that we can really learn from this. The first is that we should actually avoid condos with majority 1 and 2 bedrooms and that they have bad layouts even though they are close to the MRT. Now, the smaller units in an own stay-centric development can still perform well even in the OCR, but the further away from the MRT as we get, because the land size gets bigger, these are bigger units in general and hence more own stay-centric. And it kind of all makes sense, right? Which primary school out there is like directly next to an MRT? So in the OCR, if you are 1 km to a primary school, it's most likely that your condo is also further away from the MRT. And the primary school factor over here is definitely more important than the RCR and CCR. The factor is about 0.78 correlation. And lastly, regardless of the MRT distance, unit mix of schools, the poorest performing condos in the OCRs lack livability. Also, a point to note is that the data might suggest that the highest annualized returns are the 501 to 1000 meter condos in the OCR, but I realized that a lot of them are actually ECs. So ECs, obviously, you have the highest annualized returns possible. If you strip that out away, your 201 to 500 meter condos actually perform as well in the OCR. Moving on to the RCR, and this is where the relationship between MRT and profitability is super clear-cut. Now, in the RCR, it follows an almost linear relationship, meaning the closer you are to the MRT, the higher the annualized returns. But it is not so simple actually. Let's take a look at the numbers and specific case studies. Over here, what I've done is to filter the 0 to 200 meter condos, and these are the worst performing RCR condos that are closest to the MRT. And you realize that the unit mix becomes less important, but that really depends on the unit type that you're buying. So if you take a look at, let's say, Commonwealth Towers, 72% of the units at Commonwealth Towers are 1 and 2 bedrooms. However, it's still a big development. Oftentimes, you'll see analysis like, wow, if there's more than 60% 1 and 2 bedrooms, it's bad. But in reality, we also have to layer that with the actual number of units. So for Commonwealth Towers, big development, 845 units. The percentage doesn't tell us the full story because there are actually 195 3-bedroom units over there. This kind of achieves a critical mass that would then be enough transaction volume and demand, and that's the reason why resale prices can continue to appreciate. Take a look at the 3 bedrooms. Commonwealth Towers still perform very well, 5.33% annualized returns for the 3-bedroom, but the overall annualized return of the condo has been dragged down by the smaller unit types. Since we have already established that in the RCR, being close to the MRT is very important, all the more so that if we go to the 501 to 1000 meters, if you are not having an MRT nearby, you have to be livable. This example over here, again, these are the condos that are further away from the MRT, the worst performers. The Crest, more than 500 meters away from MRT, it is one of the worst performers because just take a look at the layout. Even though on paper it's 1033 square feet, but you can barely fit in a dining table. And if you take a look at the rooms, you can't put a queen size bed and they have very odd triangular shapes. The second point is that the distance on my spreadsheet, these are just the straight line distance. Landmark, for example, the walk to Chinatown MRT is actually longer than the paper straight line distance I have in my spreadsheet. The third thing is that the price you pay and eventual time period that you sell it matters as well. Since we are using actual transactions and the annualized returns, it does not mean that, hey, the performance is bad then, it's going to be bad going forward. So Avenue South back then was sold to be the first mover advantage of the Greater Southern Waterfront, but in reality, I think it was a first mover disadvantage because back then the Greater Southern Waterfront has not started yet. Hence, people who are selling today, they will not get very good annualized returns because the exit strategy and the timing are mismatched, right? So going forward, I actually think that Avenue South presents very good value if you have a holding period of about 5 to 10 years because the Belaya Estate, which is the former Keppel Club, is finally kickstarting the Greater Southern Waterfront transformation. You can watch my video on the URA master plan and key transformation areas. I left the link above. And if you're keen to receive the ultimate guide to the URA Master Plan 2026, you can fill up the Google form link below and I'll be happy to send it to you. In summary, here's what the data tells us about the relationship between MRT and RCR condos. Now, firstly, compared to the OCR and the CCR, MRT is the most important factor for profitability in the RCR, and it follows a near perfect linear relationship. Since distance to the MRT is so important, the real world distance is even more important. So whenever you're looking at a property in the RCR, better go and walk the actual ground, how long it takes to go to the MRT, right? Third is, while the unit mix percentage might look bad on paper, we have to take a look at the total number of units of each type, right? So if 3 bedrooms still have a critical mass, it will still tell a better story about profitability. And as such, the unit mix and school proximity are less important than the MRT, at least compared to the OCR. But more importantly is that even if you are close to the MRT, there are many bad units and layouts out there that you should avoid. Again, you need to focus on condos being livable. And finally, to the CCR, and this is where the annualized gains has the weakest relationship to MRT proximity. Now, in fact, the relationship is actually even more inverse than that of the OCR, but if we exclude the more than 1,000 meter properties, and these are basically your Sentosa properties showing negative returns, the further you are away from the MRT, the higher the annualized returns. Don't make sense? So let's deep dive into the numbers to see why this is so. Over here, what I've done is to rank CCR condos from the worst performing ones, and surprise, surprise, many of them are the District 1 and 2 properties or your CBD properties. Now, these are all less than 500 meters to the MRT, so very clearly, this boils back down to my point that MRT is just one of many factors, but the most important factor is never the MRT, especially in CCR, because CBD properties are notorious to have very bad layouts, they're very cramped, high unit mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms, and essentially they lack livability. Another interesting observation is that in District 7, there are also some poor performers. Look at the M. Now remember this darling, right? Back then at launch, it sold 70% on launch day back in February 2020, just before COVID. But till date, it has not performed well with just 1.34% annualized gains. And I speak for experience because I actually was contacted by an owner who bought at launch, and it was really tough fight. I finally managed to sell the property after quite a long time. So launch day sales is never a good measure of actual resale performance down the road. The recent launches in 2026 has had a lot of hype, but instead of FOMOing into your decision, I always sit down with my clients to map out a clear strategy, what are the exact units to buy, what are the units to avoid, and most importantly, what should be our walkaway price. If you are keen to have an honest discussion and objective analysis of what you should buy and what you should avoid, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp and I'll be happy to share more with you. In summary, the relationship between MRTs and CCR, what the data tells us is that MRT and profitability has the weakest relationship here, especially when compared to the OCR and the RCR. Now, this is because many of the condos, yes, they have MRTs, but they are in District 1 and 2, so CBD properties generally lack livability. District 7 is another poor performer. While he has fared poorly today, I think Midtown Modern is one of the key defining change in the area. They're trying to make that livable condo over there. So it remains to be seen whether the resale performance will do well going forward. Further from the MRT also allows your larger land plots, and these are the better performing CCR condos. These are livable condos in a more private area, in a more quiet area as well. And lastly, the school proximity factor is the weakest in the CCR compared to the OCR and RCR. Here's an overview of the correlation matrix that I've done between the factors, and one quick note is that across all 3 regions, being within 200 meters of an MRT does consistently produce you the best rental yields with correlations of over 0.9. But don't forget that yield is not capital appreciation, so I always ask all my clients that I meet, what is your ultimate goal? How sure are you that chasing yield will actually give you on net higher returns at the end of your 5-year holding period? Even though the data suggests that MRT is a very important factor, it is one of many factors, and here at Own This Property, that is why we use our OTP framework to analyze properties on 5 key factors to give you a more holistic view. If you wish to receive my ultimate guide to new launches 2026, where I rank all the new condos based on this OTP framework, you can fill up the Google form link below and I'll be happy to send it to you. So if a property is further away from the MRT, can you still buy it? What is a fair price gap? So as promised, I've identified 2 condos that display this value opportunity right now. Let's take a look at them. To establish what is a fair price gap for a property further away from the MRT, let's use Woodleigh as a case study as the baseline. Now the travel, which is about 500 meters further away from the MRT compared to Park Colonial. Now they both launched the same time, TOP around the same time, and are also of a large development size. Based on their current pricing, the market dictates that 500 meters further away should equate to about $250 per square feet cheaper. So that is the fair price gap baseline we'll be using. One resale property I spotted that is potentially good value is in the Hougang area. So Hougang Central Integrated will likely launch around the end of 2026 or early 2027, and easily it will average at 2,550 but probably higher. This is referencing the recent Pinery Residences. So Riverfront Residences is 896 meters away, but you can get it today for around $1,816 per square feet. Even if we lease equalize it, adjust for URA harmonization, it is over $500 cheaper. So baseline, 900 meters, it should be about $450 per square feet cheaper. But in this case, we are more than $500 per square feet cheaper. Florence Residences is also further away, 744 meters, transacting at about $1,946 per square feet. It is about $320 per square feet cheaper. So both offer good value, but I think that Riverfront Residences really stands out right now in this area. And one new launch that has an even bigger price gap is Hudson Place. Now this area also has another new launch called Bloomsbury, but compare this to the existing resale in the area, they are both about 500 meters further away from the MRT, which, remember, the baseline should be about $250 per square feet cheaper. Compared to the upcoming Dover Drive GLS next year, Hudson Place should only be about $300 per square feet cheaper, right? So we take 600 meters times 50, so that's about $300 per square feet. But it's actually more than $550 per square feet cheaper, and this represents very safe margins for me. Our data also shows that larger units have better annualized returns. So for the same budget, you can probably only afford a 2-bedroom at the Dover Drive GLS, but at Hudson Place, you can afford even a 3-bedroom over there. So you're buying a bigger size, coupled with that PSF price safety gap, I think that your exit strategy is much better positioned. Anyway, this is not a condo review about Hudson Place Residences. If you're keen to find out more, you can fill up the Google form link below where I'll share with you my ultimate guide to new launches 2026, or you can also reach out to me on WhatsApp and I'll be happy to share more with you. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for staying to the end. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.